In delving into the realms of spiritual impulses, irrespective of their trajectory, a comprehension rooted in spiritual science becomes paramount. The currents shaping contemporary events carry imprints that lead back to individuals adept at navigating spiritual influences in diverse ways. Contemplation beckons. What propels certain individuals to engage in the behaviors we've been exploring? This begets another query. Why do we find ourselves in an era where falsehoods, draped in the guise of untruthfulness, wield an influential sway across the globe? It's a potent force, steering individuals with an intensity that, if redirected toward truth, holds the potential for profound healing. These intricacies are intricately intertwined with the profound impulses steering humanity at present. A nuanced understanding, suited to our times, emerges when we fold into our reflections the urgent mandate of our embraced spiritual scientific worldview. Our anthroposophical spiritual science seeks insight into spiritual dimensions and forces at play in the human world, not just between birth and death, but also in the interlude between death and rebirth. Contemporary minds find grappling with these ideas challenging, for certain faculties integral to human evolution have receded, lying dormant for a while. Yet, through the beacon of spiritual science, these faculties must rekindle. Recall that in antiquity, the human soul shared an instinctive, innate connection with the spiritual realm. Such bonds didn't necessitate active spiritual efforts, but were intrinsic. Termed atavistic, these connections existed naturally. Moreover, the unquestionable belief in life after death prevailed in those times. Doubt about such existence only surfaced during an interim period, destined to be succeeded by an age where the awareness of existence between death and rebirth becomes universal. In the bygone eras, there existed a third condition as natural to the human soul as contemporary waking and sleeping are today. Presently, when awake, humans confine themselves to the tangible physical world, perceptible through their senses. Between birth and death, they navigate a realm comprehensible through sensory perception and an understanding confined by the brain. During sleep, they plunge into unconsciousness with the entities of ego and astral body, in which they dwell between falling asleep and waking, yet to attain the strength to bestow a comparable consciousness. The astral body has been evolving since the ancient moon, and the ego only since the inception of Earth's evolution. Both, in the cosmic tapestry, are youthful and not yet robust enough to yield consciousness when left alone in the transition between slumber and wakefulness. Amidst this nocturnal sojourn, dreams unfurl with their myriad images. Within these dreamscapes, a wealth of spiritual elements resides. However, the contemporary human soul lacks the capacity to peer beyond the veiled illusions of dreams and fathom the essence that resides within them. Dreams, deceptive and woven from the fabric of Maya, can, when interpreted rightly, unfold experiences from bygone times or foretell glimpses of the future. They unveil the intricate dance between the living and the departed during the hours of repose. The breadth of existence can manifest through dreams, yet the current state of human evolution renders the enigmatic language of dreams indecipherable. Much like Europeans struggling to interpret the spoken sounds of the Chinese, people today grapple with the pictorial language concealed within dreams. In this interim phase, human consciousness remains confined to the insights derived from older instruments, the physical and etheric bodies. These entities have been evolving since the ancient Sun and ancient Saturn, constructed to bestow consciousness as long as the individual resides within them, spanning the period between awakening and the onset of sleep. The pursuit of spiritual science furnishes us with notions of a supersensible realm operating within and beyond the tangible world apprehensible to our senses. These concepts, gifted by spiritual science and embraced by us, find no counterpart in sensory perception. Instead, they tether themselves to the realms between death and rebirth, or the ethereal domain extending beyond the sensory world. Grasping these concepts isn't a mere intellectual exercise, it transcends the mere accumulation of theories. Rather, it beckons the cultivation of a particular inner disposition of the soul when confronted with truths about the supersensible. Expressing these ideas in language poses a challenge as our linguistic tools are crafted for the external, physical plane. Consequently, when applying them to supersensible realities, we find ourselves grappling. The everyday application of our understanding, moulded for the physical, resides densely within our soul because our ever-present brain is adept at handling ideas and concepts pertinent to the physical realm. However, when elucidating matters divorced from the physical, our soul must exert itself. Engaging with spiritual science, our brain gradually takes a back seat. The hurdles in comprehending spiritual science arise not from the complexity of the subject matter, but from the brain's inclination to impede our understanding. Our brain is attuned to the robust concepts of the physical plane, necessitating conscious effort to assimilate the subtler, albeit only in the context of human comprehension, concepts of the spiritual world. This exertion isn't a hindrance but a wholesome endeavour. It signifies a departure from the accustomed terrain of physical knowledge, understanding and ideas. Spiritual science invites us into a novel soul experience, distinct from the demands of physical pursuits. It propels us into a realm of dynamic, delicate images and ideas, a profound and meaningful shift in perspective. You can reach a point where you feel that you're sufficiently immersed in the sphere where the etheric body operates somewhat independently, merely using the brain in subtle vibrations. It's the juncture where the effort required to contemplate thoughts from spiritual science diminishes, contrasting with the exertion needed for everyday thoughts. Everyday thoughts, related to the physical plane, are personally crafted based on daily necessities, life conditions, likes, dislikes, and the inputs of your senses and brain-bound understanding. Spiritual science, on the other hand, reveals a different experience. As you delve into it, a realization dawns that these thoughts aren't entirely your own. They exist pre-formed, hovering in the objective thinking of the universe, seamlessly entering your consciousness. Recognizing this, you gain a profound connection to the delicate, ethereal, floating world in which your soul resides. Subsequently, it's merely a matter of time, albeit possibly a lengthy one, before you gradually enter the realm shared with the deceased with whom you share karmic ties. In ancient times, the question of immortality wasn't debated. People then experienced a third condition beyond waking and sleeping, an intermediary state that wasn't mere dreaming. It was an elemental, natural state where individuals communed with their departed kin on a spiritual plane. When something extraordinary occurred, individuals sensed the presence of those who had passed through death, whether recently or in the distant past. They felt as if the departed actively participated or offered counsel. In moments of decision or adversity, the living felt the companionship of the dead. The question of immortality or its absence was irrelevant. It would have been akin to questioning the presence of someone with whom we converse. In those bygone times, every experience was a tangible reality, and people lived knowing that the departed were intimately involved in all that unfolded. The ancient times, relegated to the subterranean recesses of existence, are destined for resurgence, albeit in a transformed guise. Human beings attaining the soulful disposition achievable through spiritual science will usher in this return. Actively immersing oneself in the spiritual world's images provided by spiritual science enables the soul to delicately attune, allowing the so-called dead to enter. While the departed are always present, the crux lies in our awareness of their entry into our soul sphere. Those karmically linked during life are perpetually surrounded by the dead, but to facilitate their entry into our consciousness, we must meet them with the refined attunement described. The dead can gain entry into human souls when these souls cultivate a life imbued with the mood delineated earlier, where concepts and ideas exist in a supersensible realm. From the physical aspect of man, the dead must retreat, unable to penetrate at this moment. Similarly, they cannot infiltrate thoughts arising solely from the brain in the manner of the physical world. As contemporary humans predominantly entertain thoughts originating in the brain, establishing contact with the living proves arduous for the dead. However, if the living proactively engage with the dead, cultivating the fine attunement born from profound involvement with supersensible ideas, the dead can enter a floating and weaving world detached from the bodily aspect. The pivotal factor today hinges on whether human souls can, to some extent, traverse the path leading to the dead. In doing so, the dead can extend a reciprocal meeting in a shared realm. It is emphasized that what spiritual science conveys about the supersensible world, the concepts and ideas we formulate, are relevant for both the living and the dead. Advocating the practice of reading to the dead involves unfolding thoughts oriented towards them, referencing the supersensible world. This practice serves as a bridge, reaching not only those who recently passed, but all the departed, even those who departed long ago. In this manner, the living possess the potential to draw near to the departed, just as the deceased hold the capacity to influence the thoughts of the living. Acquiring the essence of spiritual science enables one to grasp the idea that during the prolonged era of materialism, where human focus has gravitated towards more materialistic notions exclusive to the physical plane, the deceased have dwindling impact on the unfolding events in the physical world. Human preoccupation with ideas confined to the physical realm, bereft of relevance to the departed, has led to the current scenario where events in the physical world transpire with minimal or no influence from those who have crossed over. This status quo necessitates transformation. A revival of active communication must transpire between the living and the departed. The departed ought to regain the ability to intercede in the physical world, ensuring that events no longer unfold solely under the sway of conceptions originating in this material realm. The pursuit of spiritual science intricately links with the mission to provide the departed an avenue to work within the physical world. It underscores a profound and noble objective, creating a bridge between the spiritual realm, the abode of the dead, and the physical world. This endeavour seeks to liberate the departed from the sense of exile, acknowledging that the living, bound by their inability to develop thoughts through which the dead could exert influence, contribute to this estrangement. Through spiritual science, the aspiration is to dissolve this separation, facilitating a harmonious interplay between the spiritual and physical domains. Many may express their efforts to embrace the ideas of spiritual science, yet claim to perceive no signs of influence from the departed. To these dear friends I say, such endeavours demand a considerable amount of patience. One must consider the centuries-long trend towards materialism in human life on the physical plane, a trajectory that resists anything facilitating the meaningful participation of the deceased. Over time, unconscious feelings and sensations have developed towards the spiritual world, causing what emanates from spiritual science today to often appear as mere abstract theory. While individuals may hold a conviction in the truth of spiritual science's revelations about the spiritual world, these insights may not have fully permeated their entire soul life, hindering the development of sensations and feelings conducive to the delicate interplay with the departed. Seeing these matters in their proper light is no easy task. People today are the descendants of those who lived during recent centuries, deeply influenced by the rise of materialism. The dispositions of feelings and sensations, possibly flowing through ancestral bloodlines, are not inherently suited to presenting the delicate manifestations and revelations from the dead before the soul in a proper manner. Instead, our feelings act as flickering lights, excitable and obstructing the subtle impulses that remain delicate and intimate. Despite these challenges, there is no cause for discouragement. It is crucial to focus on the positive aspect. The positive aspect lies in genuine efforts to attain a state, born from studying spiritual science, that can bestow a peacefulness of soul in certain moments of life. The crux is achieving that peaceful state and a refined attunement within it, fostering the reception of the delicate and intimate manifestations and revelations from the kingdom of the departed. In addition, goodwill is imperative to counteract the pervasive untruthfulness discussed in these lectures. The falsehoods circulating in the world, forming what might be termed the spiritual aura, create a dense fog that proves impenetrable for the deceased. This fog encapsulates all the deceptive information originating from sources like contemporary journalism, where untruths are disseminated, printed, and repeated, constructing a global atmosphere of falsehood. It's no exaggeration to assert that the dead find it exceedingly challenging to navigate through this dark fog. Thus, aligning with the ideas presented regarding the concrete untruthfulness prevalent in the world, there's a crucial need to strive for clarity. An earnest effort is required to recognize the external truth of the physical plane, to avoid shrouding our souls in a dense fog that renders the spiritual world inaccessible. The necessity of this endeavor is profound. Now, in conjunction with the concepts discussed, let's explore the question: What is the objective of those secret societies responsible for propagating the impulses contributing to the prevailing untruthfulness, which, in turn, has given rise to contemporary distressing events? Among various aims, one particular goal stands out. These secret societies intend to intensify materialism further. They seek to instill even greater materialistic tendencies in the world than what would naturally evolve during the fifth post-Atlantean period of human development. This desire for increased materialism represents just one facet of their broader objectives, but it's an aspect we will touch upon here. Societies are founded with this objective in mind, and individuals are encouraged to join these societies during their lifetimes if they are deemed suitable. Diverse types of such societies exist. One prevalent category, particularly evident in the West in various forms, includes organizations that engage in ceremonial magic. While ceremonial magic can serve benevolent purposes, we are specifically addressing societies that practice it not for the greater good of humanity, but to further the interests of specific groups or certain specific aims that deviate from general human objectives. Examining societies that practice ceremonial magic from this perspective, it's crucial to note that while ceremonial magic can serve positive ends, in these particular societies, its intentions are not benign. Certain forms of ceremonial magic can have distinct effects on the human physical body, considering that everything physical is, ultimately, a manifestation of the spiritual. Under the influence of ceremonial magic, specific spiritual aspects come into being that can impact the human physical body, particularly the ganglia system, as described earlier, and the spinal system. The cerebral system proves the most challenging to influence directly through ceremonial magic. Such influences must traverse the spiritual element, albeit it can be done effectively. Imagine secret societies engaging in a form of ceremonial magic directed toward its darker aspects. Envision them influencing their members to affect even the physical body's delicate vibrations and weavings, allowing something spiritual to flow into the physical body. What ensues is a consequence that was suitable in earlier human evolutionary periods, but is no longer permissible today. These procedures create the conditions for the spiritual world to influence those participating, even if they don't consciously turn toward it along the path previously described. Consequently, it becomes possible for the dead, as well as other spirits, to influence the members within a circle created by ceremonial magic. In this manner, contemporary materialism can be intensified into a hyper-materialistic state. Now, consider an individual, numerous in the West, entirely steeped in materialism, not merely in their worldview, but also in all their feelings and sensations. Picture this materialistic disposition, intensifying to a significant degree. Such a person inevitably develops a desire to exert influence on the material world, not only during their life in the physical body, but also after death. Their inclination is clear. Upon death, they aspire to have a dwelling from which they can impact the people they've left behind on earth, or those attuned to them in a certain way. Indeed, there exist individuals today whose materialistic drive is so profound that they actively seek means to maintain connections with the physical world, even beyond death. The means through which a person secures the potential to affect the material world from beyond the grave are the abodes of specific ceremonial magical practices. This scenario carries immense consequences. Envision a group of people coming together to form a particular brotherhood. These individuals are aware that others have preceded them. Driven by an insatiable desire for power, these predecessors found earthly life insufficient for its gratification and seek to continue satisfying it even after death. For them, the group creates a dwelling, and through the acts of ceremonial magic performed, these deceased individuals work into the bodies of the living members. Consequently, the living gain more power than they naturally possess, enabling them to wield a certain degree of magical influence over other, less fortified individuals outside such brotherhoods. When these individuals speak or give a speech, the influence of the dead souls works through them, as they've been prepared through participating in these acts of ceremonial magic. It's one thing if an individual honestly participates in the cultural processes of their time, delivering a speech in Parliament or writing a newspaper article. However, it's an entirely different matter if someone belonging to a ceremonial magic circle, strengthened by the power urges of the deceased, engages in parliamentary discourse or contributes to a newspaper. The latter exercises an immensely greater degree of influence in alignment with their wishes than would be the case without this backing. This represents one facet of the situation. On the flip side, those who enter certain societies practicing ceremonial magic are securing a power that extends beyond death, a form of Ahrimanic immortality. This becomes their primary concern. The society they join serves as a kind of assurance that certain forces, which would ordinarily cease at the moment of their death, will persist and continue to operate beyond death. Surprisingly, more individuals than one might assume are now filled with the notion of guaranteeing for themselves an Ahrimanic immortality, exercising influence not only as individual human beings, but also through the instrumentality of such societies. These societies manifest in diverse forms, and those who attain specific degrees of advancement within them understand. As members of this society, they shall, to some extent, achieve immortality because forces that would typically conclude at death will endure. What these individuals experience through ceremonial magic renders them oblivious to a profound thought that someone approaching such matters with genuine seriousness and dignity would ponder. Namely, the more a person gains in terms of materialistic, or rather Ahrimanic immortality, the more they lose in consciousness of true, authentic immortality. Despite this, materialism has such a firm grip on many souls today that they remain indifferent to this loss, deceived into striving for Ahrimanic immortality. One could assert that certain societies existing today, from a spiritual or occult perspective, might be labelled as insurance companies for Ahrimanic immortality. Only a small number of people in each case truly comprehend these matters. Typically, these societies are organised in a manner where the ceremonial magic they practice influences only those who are unaware of the implications, individuals merely desiring to connect with the spiritual world through symbolic ceremonies. There are many such individuals. Those who harbour this desire are not necessarily the worst, as they are accepted as members within the ceremonial magic circle, among whom there are a few manipulating the others as mere instruments. Hence, caution is warranted concerning all secret societies administered by so-called higher grades, whose aims are concealed from the lower grades. The administrative grades usually include individuals initiated to a stage where they only possess a vague understanding of the explanations I've just provided. These grades consist of individuals working positively towards certain goals and objectives, which are then actualized by the broader group lured into the circle of ceremonial magic. Everything these individuals do is orchestrated to align with the direction desired by the higher grades, fortified by the forces emanating from ceremonial magic. The vast number of such societies existing in the West can provide some insight into the immensely effective tools these ceremonial magic societies become for certain far-reaching plans in the world. As demonstrated, their primary aim is to perpetuate a mode of operation in which the spiritual world influences the sense-perceptible physical world in a manner that was appropriate in earlier times. However, for our current era, the correct approach is for humans to move towards the deceased and meet them halfway. Yet, the mood we've just discussed seeks a path that was suitable in earlier atavistic times, but is now pursued through the medium of ceremonial magic. This should offer you an understanding of the disproportionate measures exaggerated materialism, particularly hyper-materialistic materialism, is willing to take to breach the border into the spiritual world. A border that, in today's context, should only be traversed by attuning the soul to the mood achievable through contemplating supersensible concepts. An appropriate attitude for today involves not accepting what is promulgated by many secret societies if it is not understood. Much is given out and accepted today without true comprehension. It is fitting to regard what these societies disseminate as at most a failure to give spoken words their genuine value, using words as mere concepts. In the world's current buzz of untruthfulness and egoism, even the canonization of egoism, not by the Pope of course, and the coining of the phrase sacro egoismo, a new saint not canonized by the Pope, much is at play. In this world of egoisms and untruthfulness, influences and impulses are active, gaining extra strength from the world of the dead in the manner described. By exploring these impulses, you may be led to connect with other influences, about which you can find information in my book, The Spiritual Guidance of Man. The lectures forming the basis of this book were delivered in 1911 in Copenhagen for various reasons. There, you'll find a description of how certain angelic powers remained behind in the third post-Atlantean period, intending to unfold a force resembling that developed during the ancient Egyptian epoch. In those lectures I expressed, anything wonderful has the potential to become a tempter and seducer if people pursue it one-sidedly. The danger arises when noble impulses, if fanatically pursued, can manifest as fanaticism, hindering their right unfolding. While mankind progresses through noble impulses, an over-enthusiastic pursuit can lead to undesirable outcomes. Certain forces, originally fitting for the third post-Atlantean period, are now active in our time. Seeking a connection to proper angels is akin to finding a connection to those retarded spirits from the Egypto-Chaldean period. These beings, known as retarded angels, play significant roles in the secret societies previously described. Much in these societies aims to bring Egypto-Chaldean elements into the present under the influence of these beings. The societies often seek leaders from the hierarchy of angels just above humanity, indicating the importance of these retarded angels. Understanding how the living testaments of these societies, forces extending beyond death, work and persist reveals their magical power. This magical power often allows them to impart a stamp of truthfulness to something untrue, contributing to the spreading of untruth in a way that appears truthful. The strength of evil lies in this working of untruth in what is true, and it is utilized in various quarters. This provides an esoteric background to the exoteric matters previously discussed. Tomorrow, we will delve even deeper into certain aspects of these topics. And that's a wrap for today's learning journey. Thank you so much for joining us and experiencing all the excitement. If you had as much fun as we did, don't forget to give that like button a big thumbs up and subscribe.